I used to live in New Jersey, in an old Victorian, right smack dab middle of the boonies. Where I lived, cell phones rarely got reception. Back a few decades ago, when I was a kid, a housing development went up. Big places. They cleared a few miles of the barrens for it. It was a stone's throw from my place. Once the places were finished, people moved in. City people, really. It was either old people or new families with real young kids. People that wanted to either wind their life down or start a new one up. Nothing special. I knew a handful of the kids through elementary school, but none of them were exactly my age. They were normal. When the people moved in, my mom made an effort to meet everyone. With us being so close and all, there was one guy that stuck out in my mind. Mainly because he was bald yet young. Probably 38 at the oldest, I want to say. My mom said not to say anything because he might have a disease or something like that. Years went by. I grew up and went into middle school. I came home one day. I had to walk because I missed all the buses. I went past the housing development. Glancing down the street, I didn't see anyone. Not a soul. It was around 5:20, according to my watch, if I remember right. Normally, all the fathers were getting home at 5-ish. Curiosity got me. I walked down the street to see what I could see. Every house was dark, except for the bald man's. I glanced in his window and saw about the entire population of the small community sitting in his living room. Children, parents, the elderly, everyone. Standing in the middle of everything was the bald man. It seemed as though it was just a casual meeting. People were talking and laughing. Whatever. I didn't know why the hell I cared anyway. I walked home and got grounded for being late and not calling from the school. That night, my mom got a call from another local neighbor, saying that she was hearing unsettling grinding noises from the small community. My mom said that someone was probably getting work done. When she asked me if I had seen anything on my way home, I didn't answer, as I was still bitter that she had grounded me in the first place. The next day, every kid from that small neighborhood was marked absent in school. And the day after that, the police went to investigate that night. The first thing they found was an ear on the front lawn of the bald man's house. A severed human ear. A child's arm was found in a trash can, dumped with a few empty pizza boxes, and a man's split open torso was located in the woods behind the property, with human bite marks penetrating the flesh. The rest of the community was inside the house. All the entrances, both doors and windows, were boarded shut. When they broke down the door, they found the corpses of everyone, the entire development's population. Children, parents, the elderly, everyone. Some were mutilated beyond initial recognition, and most were missing organs like livers and kidneys. Forensics showed that the victims were alive when their organs were taken out. A child's body was also found in the oven of the house, burnt to the point where the skin melted. Forensics showed that the child was alive when his skin started to melt. Children, parents, the elderly, everyone except for the bald man. A background search on him proved that he was involved in a local sect of the occult, which are known to practice in the Pine Barrens. He fled. He hasn't been found. Needless to say, what happened literally tore our community apart in multiple ways. Instead of the boogeyman, my friends and I had nightmares about something real. About a bald man. Horror movies don't scare me because I knew they were fake. What happened was real, and that terrifies me to this day. The massacre occurred in 1984, 28 years ago. I'm 41 now. I went back to the site last month. The houses are still standing. All of them are abandoned. The single road that once connected the community to the outside world is long overgrown. I can't find any police files, nor can I find any news broadcasts about the murders. The houses are still there, but everything that had to do with that place seems to be gone. I could spend hours telling all the urban legends I've heard about it. Weird New Jersey posted a story in their book, I think. Nothing's conclusive. No newspapers. No files. I searched the records of some of the children from my school. They were never legally documented. But I know, and every other person that witnessed it and lived in West Milford County in 1984 knows. I cannot, in any way, express to you how much the events that I've described have literally ruined my life. If you doubt the reality of it, the only thing I can say is that you're wrong. This happened. This isn't meant to be a creepypasta, and this isn't an urban legend. The only reason that I've posted it here is because I know that this is a community that will actually read what I'm writing. I'm not sure what I can say to make you believe, but a total of 37 people were murdered in the most brutal ways I can imagine. The place has a lot of names. It used to be called New City Village. Now, it's called Demon's Alley. Look it up for yourself if you don't believe me. People need to know about this, for all it's worth. Please, share this. On an August afternoon in 2008, Richie Hall asked that benign question. Sitting atop a hill, I twisted my head away from the spectacular view of our town below and lifted an inquisitive eyebrow at my friend. We were only 10 years old, and my initial thought was that Richie had misspoken. "Don't you mean Simon says?" I asked. Richie shook his head. "Simon stays." "No," I answered. "I've never played that." "Daniel told me about it," Richie continued. "He said it's only for adults." "Ew. This isn't going to be like the time that..." "It's not porn, Amber." Richie interrupted. "I still have nightmares of those two girls and..." "It's not porn," Richie adamantly reiterated. "It's a game for adults. Are you an adult, Amber?" I frowned. "No, Richie, and neither are you. But I'm old enough to know that urban legends are dumb." Richie huffed. "You're worse than Daniel. Don't you want to prove that we're as brave as that smug prick?" "I just know that anything he's suggested must be either dangerous or disgusting. Usually a combination of the two," I said. "Why don't I show you how it works? Then you can decide whether you want to play," Richie suggested. He had a feverish look in his eyes. I'd seen it countless times. He was wonderful in so many ways, but the boy always had something to prove, and that often hampered his rationality. Something which became all too clear to me when my dear friend began to speak in tongues. I've no idea what Richie said, but I wouldn't dare to repeat it. Some readers might have reckless ideas. Anyway, after several minutes of chanting that chilled my flesh, Richie stopped and looked at me. "Want to play?" he asked. I gulped and nodded. I'm not sure why. Curiosity or hypnosis. Take your pick. Something drove me to join Richie on his hellish quest. Firstly, we choose a place to seek him. Let's hope he's listening. Richie said, "Simon stays in the graveyard." The town church sat at the foot of the hill. My friend leapt to his feet, pointing at the steeple which loomed above the overgrown graveyard. As he started to stomp down the hill, my chest tightened. "I don't want to do this," I said. "Graveyards aren't scary," Richie assured me. "You don't need to be afraid." "You know why I don't want to go down there," I muttered. It was where my mother was buried, and when Richie remembered that, he hung his head in shame. "Listen, Simon stays. It's more than a game. If we find him, Simon can answer any and all questions. Come with me, and you can finally find peace," Richie said, stretching a hand towards me. "Who is Simon?" I whispered. "Let's find out," he replied, eyeing the setting sun, which fell from a reddening sky. I held my friend's hand and descended the hill towards our sleepy town. In the decaying light, the graveyard became more than a sea of headstones. It was a shadowy chasm in the earth, a gateway to hell itself. Perhaps I blindly followed Richie through the gate into that darkened graveyard because I'd always loved him. Perhaps 10-year-olds have a natural tendency to act foolishly. Whatever the case, I squeezed Richie's hand tightly as we wandered and weaved through the headstones. "What are we hoping to find?" I shakily asked. There came a wheeze from a nearby gravestone. In horror, I turned my head, but there was nothing to be seen. And then Richie's hand slipped out of mine. When I twisted to face him, he was sprinting into the night. "Richie!" I called after him. "Don't leave me here! Can't you hear Simon?" Richie cried joyously. "He's going to answer my questions!" I lost sight of my friend behind some gravestones, and I ran after him with trembling legs. The lightless graveyard had already terrified me, but it plunged to a new level of horror once I was alone. I shrieked Richie's name until my throat went dry. He'd vanished from sight, and every part of my body was screeching at me to go home. I knew my father would be worrying. But then I heard a sound, a hummed tune. It sounded vaguely like a dissonant version of a children's lullaby, though I couldn't place which one, and that only unsettled me more deeply. When Richie finally emerged from the shadows, I screamed. His skin had withered, and he had inexplicably aged. He looked older than any living human, hundreds of years old, as if he had spent centuries learning terrible truths from Simon. This impossibility had ridden Richie of his humanity, and the decrepit figure filled me with terror beyond comprehension. "What happened to you?" Richie smiled a yellow, toothy grin.
"Simon answers all questions, but everyone stays. And you'll stay, Amber, when he's answered your questions."
"I don't want answers," I whimpered, backing away from the abomination that used to be my friend. In the dim moonlight, I started to notice the full extent of his dreadful features. His pupils were black saucers that spanned most of his eyes, but it was a black fullness, not emptiness. They were eyes of knowledge. Too much knowledge, it seemed.
"Too late. You're playing the game."
Richie giggled.
"Simon must answer your question, and when he does, you must stay here. Forever. For his knowledge is too great to fall upon the ears of those outside our little game. It's a secret, Amber. Can you keep a secret?"
I darted as fast as my legs could carry me. I heard a howl from the inhuman Richie, and he scurried after me. I didn't turn around to verify that. I had to trust my ears. The graveyard gate was in sight, But Simon had transformed my friend into an unstoppable machine. He was hot on my heels. I only had one shot at freedom, and it was based on an unsubstantiated hunch. Richie was trapped in the graveyard. When that green, rusting gate opened and closed behind me, I turned and breathed a sigh of relief. Richie didn't follow me. I eyed the subhuman monstrosity that used to be my dearest friend. It didn't cross the boundaries of the graveyard, but the gaze from its egregious eyes was enough to haunt me. I winced, bracing for a bony hand to slither over the gate and seize me by the neck. Instead, Richie, or the thing that used to be Richie, spun around and fled. To this day, nobody has been able to locate my missing childhood friend. Only I know the truth. Richie stays in the graveyard. It's no secret that, when in need of money, someone is willing to go to extreme lengths. I'm not morally corrupt enough to murder, but I was desperate enough to do things close to that. The divorce had been hard on me, and I wanted to get out of that house and just live on my own. For that, you need green, and my job wasn't paying enough for me to just wander off and change my address so quickly. In retrospect, maybe it wasn't so wise to look for a job on the dark web. Those pay the most, though, and I didn't want to spend my time caring for some kid or old lady, only to get paid $10 an hour. I started browsing whatever forum I could find, and filtered my search so I wouldn't have to kill anyone or sleep with anyone. After a while, I came across offerings of package deliveries and such things. Deliver this to this address, show up to this house, etc., etc. It was all right by me, but I didn't have a car, and I couldn't just walk for miles with suspicious boxes in hand. I finally came across this listing: Museum Worker Needed, $100 an hour, temporary exhibition hosted somewhere in the suburbs. I checked the address on Google Maps and found some abandoned warehouse at the edge of town. I'd driven by it a few times, back when the family car was also my car. I thought I could give it a try. Maybe it was some contemporary art stuff, some voodoo statues or cursed items. I didn't believe in any of that, so it really wasn't a problem to me. It said I had to be there during the week, from 11 a.m. to 5 p.m., and Sundays were off. The exhibition would run for around 3 months. I quickly added up some numbers. $100 an hour for 6 hours a day, for 6 days a week, for 3 months. That would certainly cover for a deposit in some second-hand car, I figured. That would be enough to help me get by. I ran through the possibilities of weird implications this ad might have. Maybe the museum was a front for human trafficking, drug dealing, or other illegal things. I don't even know why I said maybe. That was surely the case. I just had to be careful and not look into things too much. Or maybe the exhibition was hosted by some eccentric millionaire who wanted to display his dubious antiques. Either way, $100 is $100. I replied and got an instant response. Next thing I know, I was hired. With the little money that I had, I bought a bike and some headphones to help pass the time. I arrived to the warehouse one Monday at 10 a.m., eager to get the job started and get my money. I wasn't expecting it to be so empty. The warehouse was huge on the inside, but the items displayed were very few, mostly paintings covering the walls and some wooden statues, extremely tall. They almost reached the ceiling of the warehouse, and I couldn't really see their faces. All of them were sort of bent down, almost as if they were giants watching so as not to step on us. Some notebooks were on display, too. Most of them had drawings or scribbles. They weren't extraordinary. I really couldn't tell what I was looking at. I saw some unknown surgical equipment. It looked almost medieval. Next to it, a pair of ordinary scissors. I thought, at first, that it was ironic, or just a piece of art. But the washed-out lady that had led me in there told me that those particular scissors were authentic and extremely important. I couldn't really tell what age the lady was. She was Asian, her skin clear and luminous. Based solely off that, I could have guessed she was in her teens, but her eyes moved around a lot, and had a certain darkness that you only gain with age. Contrasting to her face, her hands were wrinkled and stained. Her hair fell in long threads on her back, and was tangled towards the end. It looked unwashed. The most interesting part consisted in the last 3 items, displayed on the opposite wall to the entrance. If I sat at my desk near the entrance, the wall was almost invisible, hidden in shadows. I didn't understand why the lights were so dim. The lady explained that it contributed to the atmosphere of the exhibition. One of the items was a low, round wooden table. The plaque in front of it read, "The Hunger." The table was chewed and clawed at the edges. I think it used to be square, but the wood had been bitten off and chewed to the point where the corners were rounded. The teeth marks on the table were human. I figured it must have been some art piece. The other item was a pair of shoes. The plaque read, "The Shoes That Walked Home." They were old, made of leather, and worn out in impossible places, as if whoever had worn them walked in circles continuously. The last item was an empty pedestal. Its plaque read, "Painter, do not look when occupied." I stared at it a while. Such an interesting concept. I mumbled, noticing the lady's unblinking gaze on me. "Yes," she replied. "Don't look when it's occupied, though." "How would I know?" "You'll see. It's a really easy job. You don't have a lot of duties, and you earn so much money by basically doing nothing. You must understand, we value your discretion and lack of curiosity the most." "Yes, thanks." Suddenly, I realized I didn't really want her to leave. That didn't stop her from traversing the warehouse and shutting the door behind her, without any other formalities. I was left alone, with the art. My job was to sit at the desk and greet visitors, sell them tickets. I noticed that the stack of tickets was relatively small. They didn't really expect visitors. As I imagined, the warehouse was at the edge of town and nothing really promoted this exhibition. No one was going to come. I decided I would put on some music and study the paintings. I got up and moved in front of the first, titled, "My Mother." It showed a beautiful sea landscape, the crystal waves melting into the bright shore. It was the type of scenery you'd find before a storm, so bright and yet ominous, as if it knew what it awaited. I couldn't find any trace of a woman, though. Right when I was about to move to the next painting, my neck tensed up. It's impossible to describe it. The sudden alarming urge to run, the panic builds up in your chest. I was afraid to turn around, and yet I hated having my back turned to the room. I took a deep breath. I'll count to 3. 1, 2, 3. I didn't turn around. I kept locking my eyes with my mother, afraid to act on the impulse of running back to my desk. After torturous moments where my heart was threatening to jump out of my chest, I did a swift turn and plunged back to my desk. Whew, I said out loud, "This place is creepy as hell."
Why?
Because, I don't know, it's just fucking odd. I wouldn't pay money to come here. My throat was so dry it was itching. In the cold air, drops of sweat began gathering on my forehead. My eyes darted to various points of the room, to the paintings, to the statues, to its corners. Who had I spoken to? Who even was that? I stared at the closed entrance door. Who is that? I got no answer. Screw off. Just answer me. I heard you loud and clear. I know that someone is in here. You have to... I began hopelessly. You have to buy a ticket to get in. I heard a clatter at the back of the warehouse. The hunger. The shoes that walked home. The painter. Did the pedestal refer to the one who had made the paintings? I stood up and made my way slowly to the back. I kept looking at the floor until I saw the edges of the hunger. In the dim light, I could make out the shadow of the pedestal, and on it, I saw the shadow of a figure. It looked humanoid, like someone crouched over. I couldn't tell which direction it was facing. I was so cold. I stepped back, slowly, the way I came. At last, after what felt like billions of years, I sat down on my chair. I spent the remaining time of my shift there, too disturbed to listen to music. At some point, I heard the faint sound of wet footsteps coming from the back. You know when you're little, and you begin recognizing the walk of your family members as they're coming up the stairs? How you can distinguish between your younger brother's upbeat walk and your father's slow, heavy steps. These footsteps sounded as if those two patterns were combined, almost like limping. They went on for a few seconds, then faded without reaching a certain distance. I swore to myself I would quit the next day. However, when I saw the bank transfer that night, I thought it wasn't really a bad job. It's not like I was being chased around or hurt in any way. I just had to sit down. I dreamt, however, of those footsteps reaching me at last. It's Tuesday, and as I'm writing this, I can hear them faintly in the back. I just hope that they appreciate my discretion. I wonder if the hunger and the shoes that walked home are connected in some way. But they don't pay me to be curious.